Hi, welcome to Godshots. This is the show. We're in the first week of February, second week almost, actually, 2021. And I have my favorite co-host, Darlene Sperlazza, here today from West Virginia. And we're going to talk about forgiveness today and relationships. So I want to start with Darlene and ask her what she's been through lately. We haven't seen each other since before the holidays. It's been a very interesting year, and I hope you're all staying safe and you're staying keeping your family safe in this COVID pandemic and with the economy as it is and with the new election. So let's get the show rolling. Darlene, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be back together. It's been a little break for the holidays, and as you said, everything was a little bit different this year with the pandemic and the restriction on travel. And well, at least for me, there was restriction on travel, and I think a lot of people didn't get to see their family members and different people that they usually get together with at the holidays. So it was a very different kind of holiday. So you're right about that. And I think the topic of forgiveness is extremely important for all of us right now, especially with the times that we're in. Tempers are flaring, tempers are short. Um, I think people are frightened. I think that a lot of us just are looking at the world and not knowing what's coming next and not knowing really where the truth lies, someplace in the middle of everything that we're hearing everywhere. Um, and that can lead to resentments. And
Yeah.
I think that when you have resentments, that can lead to unforgiveness. And because this is Godshots, I actually had something happen yesterday, which I want to share because it's just one more way that God shows me all the time that He's here and He's got this under control. But I don't know, like, I know you're out in California, so you're not getting a ton of snow like we are back here. But this has been a winter where it started back in the beginning of December, which it always is not like that. And we've been having consistent, steady snowfall that has stuck around. It has not left us this year. So yesterday, I woke up to about, I don't know, 6 or 7 inches of fresh snow. And, I live by myself. I work at home. And I woke up and I looked outside and everything was snowed in yet again. And so I'm sitting here and I'm starting to feel a little claustrophobic. And I'm just kind of like looking at my driveway, looking at my sidewalks, and I have a lot of concrete that needs to be unshoveled. And I work full time and I'm thinking, how am I going to get to all this? How am I going to do all this? And then I started getting a little bit resentful because I have a couple boys that live close by that I think should probably come over and help me shovel.
They're related, right?
The what?
They're related to you, right?
Yeah, my sons, yes. And anyway, so I was thinking about them, but then I kind of say, okay, they're busy. They have a life. They have children. They have things that they do. Okay, give them a break. I have a couple brothers that live close by, and it's like the same deal. And then I have a significant other in my life that called me up to say, oh, I'm doing a little shoveling for my mom. Well, immediately it was like, what about me? What about me? What about me? That little wind up doll.
Yeah.
And I got these resentments going on, and I started like just feeling like, geez, I wasn't very kind, understanding, forgiving, any of those words. I was just kind of having these resentments, and it was building and building. And this started like when I first woke up. So it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by 3 minutes until 12, I was literally, I'm asking God, I'm like, I can't do all this. I can't keep working. I can't keep doing everything you want me to do and shovel snow at the same time. And, what is it that you want from me? Please help me. That's all I said. Please help me. And within like 5 minutes of saying, please help me, my doorbell rang. And I wasn't expecting anybody. So I walked to my door and there's these two little boys, never seen them before in my life. They appeared to be like 12, but they had to be at least 15 or 16 because they were driving a car. And they said, would you like to have your sidewalks shoveled?
Oh.
And I was like, yes, as a matter of fact, I would. And I said, do you guys need shovels? Because they were just standing there. And they said, no, we have a couple in the car. And so I said, well, how much do you want? And they said, well, what do you want to pay us? And I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes. So I told him, I said, I just need, because I have 4-car garage. I said, I just need one garage door shoveled out down to the road, the front block, which is pretty long. I said, if you can shovel that for me down to the road, I said, that would be awesome, right? And I came back inside and I felt this overwhelming gratitude, like God had sent me a couple angels to shovel snow. And I went outside to give them some money for doing this, and neither one of them had gloves on. And I was like, do you have gloves? Where's your gloves? And they said, we don't have any.
Oh.
And so they're shoveling the snow in their bare hands, and they did a better job than anybody has ever done shoveling my snow.
Oh my God.
And I came in and I was so overwhelmed with gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. Like I hit my knees, my eyes became misty, and I was just like, I focus on all the wrong things.
Totally.
Because I become angry and bitter and jealous and all of those words that lead to unforgiveness. And instead of just trusting and having faith and looking up and putting it out in the universe and saying, God, what are you going to help me with here? And that gets exciting. And so when that happened, I just realized we're in a position where we're daughters of a king, right? And I always sell myself short or sell God short. I'm not sure what that is, but that was a really recent unforgiveness that I had.
I love that. Can I just ask you what you paid them? Did you give them 20 or 40 or 5 or 10 or?
You know what? I actually gave them 30 because it was what was in my wallet. So they were here for about 30 minutes and they each got $15. And I mean, really, when I looked at that, I just thought, it was just, you know what? It was just such a relief for me.
Wow.
And such a blessing. And I've never seen them before. And I don't know.
So you probably helped them too, though. See, it's a need meets supply. Remember how supply meets need? We always look for the good. And the fact that you changed your thinking. Did you change your thinking before the doorbell rang? Or you just said, yes, you did. You prayed.
I prayed.
Yeah.
But it was still but you know what? I'm not really good. Like, I mean, that whole change of thought, because you are what you think. And my stinking thinking can take me to really low points real quickly. And I just don't even realize I'm going there. You know?
Last week in a meeting, I heard a guy say, I have a book called Bob's Lies. And on one, I write all the lies about that I'm hearing in my head all day long. So-and-so hates me. I'm angry at so-and-so. They're going to screw me over. And he said, by the end of the week, I always am so relieved that none of those things came true. None of my lies to myself about life came true. It's my crazy mind making up stories all day long that are always negative, because our brain just seems to have a default mechanism to go to the negative, and we think the worst of people. I project so much onto my own industry about judgments and people doing movies for the wrong reason and doing things that used to be very self-centered fear. And the minute I take a step back and I laugh at myself, the one big gift I've been given when I found God, so to speak, is I'm able to laugh at myself and see what an idiot I can be sometimes. But I love this book of lies idea. So I've been writing down my little book of lies and nothing came true. It was like, I thought somebody was mad at me, nothing to do with me at all. They were busy, you know?
Right.
So I love that story. That's a sweet little God shot. Need meets supply. That's perfect.
That's right. And, I want to share this with you too. I've been listening to some Wayne Dyer CDs. And they're very inspirational, motivational for me, and gives me a way to think about something differently.
Yeah.
And to tie in with what we're talking about, he was talking about Job, a book. And for those of you that don't know, it's the book in the Bible that looks like it says Job. It's really pronounced Job.
Yeah.
But anyway, and how when Job was losing everything, like his children, his animals, his land, all of this. I mean, he was a pretty wealthy fellow in the Bible, and then it just started being taken away. But what wasn't recognized is that God was working in the background of that scene, right?
Right.
Friends came, his friends came and tried to console him and talk to him and tell him, well, obviously you've sinned, obviously you're doing this wrong or that wrong. And none of that was true. The truth of the matter was God was in control of that whole situation, and it was happening for a reason.
Mm.
And so when I really think about that and what Wayne Dyer said about that, it's like we need to focus more on the judging part of things, right? And not judge, because we really don't know why somebody's doing what they're doing or why they're reacting the way they're reacting. And to spin off of that even further, not this past Monday, the Monday before, so I guess it would have been like the very first Monday in February,
Mm-hmm.
I received an extremely disturbing video. And this video happened in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So for those of you that are listening that want to look this up, it was in the Scranton newspaper.
Uh-huh.
There was a, what do you call those recorders on the side of a building? What is that? When they're taping footage all the time?
It's called a
Security.
CCTV.
Security cameras.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a security camera on this building, and there were people outside, a man and a woman shoveling snow, and a dispute started with a man across the street. Did you see this?
Yes, it was just, it made me burst into tears. Yeah.
And it just, and it went on, and it ended up being at 9 o'clock in the morning, a double murder, suicide over snow shoveling.
That hard.
And I watched that, and I was just like, wow. And so, and but all three of them in the video that I watched were picking and screaming and yelling and cursing. And I just thought about that, and I thought, I have to be reminded to let it go, walk away. There is no shovel of snow worth getting killed over.
I can't
Right?
believe it.
It was a horrible situation.
Every time I start to talk, when you're talking, it sounds like a lion roaring in the background. Are you hearing that as well? I'm trying to fix the audio for a sec. Wait. It's like a strange audio problem here. I'll just try not to talk over you. No, that was the most tragic thing I've seen. I thought, is this what we've come to? This 2020 was bad enough, but this was in 2021. And I'm thinking we're at each other's, it feels like people are just so on edge, and they're so territorial and so greedy in a way, and selfish. And I learned that it's by dying to selfishness that I find everything. It's that St. Francis prayer.
Yes.
It's by self-forgetting that we find, it's by dying to self that we find eternal life, not by dying. It's not about afterlife. It's right here and now. Now is the time we're supposed to be walking the walk, treating our neighbor kindly, thinking of others first, giving to the poor. That is unbelievable that people are fighting over shoveling snow over their, and then the man that did it, he went into his house and shot himself because he couldn't live with the guilt.
Right. And so that was just, and so when I see these things, and I just think to myself, the forgiveness, I guess, can start with me, and I guess if we each think about that, plus I find that I get lots of benefits when I forgive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. And then selfishly, that's what I want. I want those benefits.
It's amazing how you can soften and disarm someone by simply turning it to love or letting it go, not retaliating. In AA, in the 12-step program, we call it restraint of tongue and pen. And I'm so reactive sometimes. I find myself calling someone an idiot. I actually type those words, sent them, and then I delete them all the time. But I'm like, they're going to see that pretty soon. Someone's going to see me doing this.
Right.
Stop.
Well, the other morning, I had this meditative time that was really special to me, and I want to share that with you. So I woke up, and like I said, we've been getting day after day of snow. And so you kind of wake up, and it's really, one thing it does is snow kind of insulates everything. So there's no noise. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. It's very still. And so I woke up and I got on my knees, and I have a big bay window up in my bedroom that overlooks like these massive fields that are just covered with snow. So I got on my knees and I was praying, and of course talking to God about my needs, my wants, prayers for people, prayers for people that have passed on to the next world, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden I just said, you know what? I think that's it for today. And now I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen to you, because as we know, prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening, right? And I thought, I just want to listen. So I sat there and I did this like 10 minutes worth of meditation. And it was so interesting because when I started, I was seeing like my windows have the grates in them, like the squares. So I was seeing the shadows of that projected on the wall. And I was looking at that and I said, oh, those look like shadows, right? And so then I could hear the silence. It was just like so silent. So I'm thinking of the words shadow and silence, and I'm meditating on these words. I kind of just like went into this state where I almost felt like paralyzed, like I wasn't moving. I was just sitting, and the thoughts had really slowed and it was just quiet. And then, because I had asked God before I started, how do I deal with relationships?
Oh,
That was my question to God. How do I deal with relationships?
yeah.
And I heard when I was coming out of that meditation, be still and know that I'm God, and look up the word still.
Mm.
And I thought, okay. So I look up the word still, and still means silent. So be silent and know that I'm God. And I think about the situation we just talked about. And if somebody would have been silent,
Right.
maybe that whole thing might have been avoided.
Oh, if only they had taken it. I mean, it's like the feuding, the Hatfields and the McCoys. I heard another person who dealt with an issue like this spiritually, and they had a feud with their neighbor who was always running a very loud, noisy air conditioner next door. And right when this person was trying to sleep or trying to do something important, this air conditioning would go on, and they kept reacting, and they would go over and talk to them. And finally, they realized only through stillness, only through prayer, which I call the invisible transfer of love to another, only through being very still and not confronting them again, not going over there and doing it in a physical, you know, material way, in the material world. They sat and they quietly prayed for the person to find all the things about that person that they could think with empathy and compassion. What do they need? What are they going through? They just poured their heart out and thought, what is the highest thought I can think? I always do this. What is the highest thought I can think? It's never a selfish thought or a thought of regret, guilt, shame, or fear. It's always a thought of the gentle presence. It's a gentle, loving thought toward my neighbor. And literally within 30 minutes, the neighbor came over, knocked on the door and said, I just want to apologize for all that noise I've been making. I'm trying so hard to pay for a new air conditioner. And I just was really cruel to you lately. And we shouldn't have words like this. And this whole thing resolved because the person was still. And I love what you just said about silence. That is so powerful.
It really is powerful. And when we're talking, and I love how this just kind of flows when we're doing these podcasts and we're talking about, the Godshots and things like that. It takes me back probably 16 years now. I didn't know when, I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous what resentments were or amends or any of that. Like I didn't have a clue. And I was just living my life the way I lived it, right? And once I started realizing that I had to learn to make amends, it was kind of interesting what happened, because by the time I hit Alcoholics Anonymous, I had been divorced. I had 3 children, which were younger. They were all boys. My ex had remarried. He'd had a little girl. And so there was just a lot going on. And I had resentments, huge resentments, right? And which led me into unforgiveness for many, many things. And so his wife, I never really treated the best for obvious reasons. I mean, I was young and I didn't know any of this stuff, and I just was not a happy camper about things that had transpired. But after I started learning and I made an amends and I wrote a letter to her, and I just said in that letter, please forgive me for being nasty and short and abrasive with you. And I have 3 boys to this man. You have a daughter to this man. And obviously, for the rest of our days, we'll be in contact. And I would not, for the children's sake, I would just like to say I'm sorry and hope that you'll forgive me for the way I've treated you.
Oh.
Now, she never came to me and said, I handed her the letter, so I know she got it. All I know is the fact that the relationship between her and I changed. She softened, I softened, and this was a long time ago. And now that daughter that they had is like my own daughter. We have a great relationship. She lives out in San Diego. She just called me today. She's like, when are you coming out to stay with me? And, so I got a bonus baby that, it was a little girl, and just love her. Alex is just the greatest thing in the world. But that might have never come to fruition had of the arguing, the bickering, and the angst kept going. So as we covered it with love, that helps. That really helps. You're right about that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just got chills. That's so beautiful. You can actually expand the love, expand the family. Otherwise, you're limited. If you cut people off with resentment and fear and you don't forgive them, you become very small. It's a form of death in a way. And the less you love, the closer you are to cutting off the sunlight of the spirit, to cutting off life itself.
That's right. That's
wow,
right.
That's beautiful. Did I tell the story about my ex-husband, how I forgave him?
I don't think so.
If I sound like if I've said this before, you just stop me. But I was really in torment when I saw my ex-husband had gotten married on Facebook. And I knew he had a new girlfriend after we divorced. But to see him get married, it just hurt me. Because at the time, I didn't have another mate. I wasn't married yet. And I was really grateful to not be married to him anymore. There were lots of things wrong with the marriage. He was kind of a con artist. And I worked on forgiving him for years. But then when I saw him in the wedding with the wife in the wedding gown and the little dog we shared in a wedding gown as well, and a little bridesmaid outfit, I just started burning. The burning hurt kind of went right in my heart, like heartburn almost. And I got on my knees and I went, help me, God. I started just praying. And in 1 minute, I jumped in a car to go to a meeting. And as I'm driving, I kept reaching for the highest thought again, which means just give me something to think better about this so I can quell this feeling. I can calm this heartburn down, heartache. And I heard this immediately: forgive him, pray for her. And I actually forgot to even share about it at the meeting when I got there. It was out of my body already. It was completely gone. But I continued to pray for forgiveness for him and to pray for her. And that night I found out she has terminal cancer. And I literally started crying. How could this happen? No human power could have made me not jealous of that woman in the state I was in earlier that day. And here I'm on my knees praying for her. And it's sad. I mean, she did die. She died a month after I saw them get married. So it was one of those things where
Wow.
but and I've forgiven him as well through all the craziness and written comedy about it. And I just feel like I would rather live in this state of grace and forgiveness than to be a bitter, resentful person who's just shriveled up inside. I mean, that's what I feel resentment does to you. And it can cause all sorts of a lot of our emotions have to do with our health. I do believe our health. I heard once about a man who forgave someone they were regretting in the past, and their back pain went away because they stopped looking back so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You never know.
No, we don't know. And that's, I think that's part of it. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't see what God sees. We don't understand why these things happen. And I've had somebody say it to me that life is kind of like, if you've ever seen a truly homemade quilt, like the old-fashioned quilts that like my grandmother used to make, and they did it on quilting reams. I think they were called reams, and it was stitched by hand. So one side of that quilt was very, very beautiful. And the other side, you could see the knots and the threads and stuff like that, because that was the side that was the stone side. And that's kind of like what life is like. You know what I'm saying? Like, God can see the finished picture. We don't. We don't, you know?
I just got chilled because I wrote something like that years ago about a tapestry. I just got chilled. You said the exact thing that I wrote. And maybe other people have said it, but I remember looking at a tapestry and I thought, we're down underneath with the long threads, the long yarn, holding on for dear life, trying to hold people. And we don't know what the picture is on the other side, the beautiful picture God sees, where every life is a thread going in and out. Some threads are gone for a while, but we don't know. We're holding on with the long yarn for our dear lives, and we don't know what the whole story is up above, you know? We don't know the whole picture. So what
And
we
so you wrote that years ago?
yeah, actually, I would love to find it and read it next time we get together, because it's in my computer and I can't access it right now. But it's called
That's
The
really cool.
Tapestry. And you just said the same thing.
That is really cool. I think we have a lot of coincidences. When we get on and we're talking, I think there's a lot of things that flow between us. And I find that really, really interesting.
Well,
And
that's what a Godshot is, a coincidence with,
yeah,
with God's way of remaining anonymous, you know, as Einstein even said. So yeah, there are no accidents whatsoever. There are no coincidences. I think
I agree.
everything is sort of in divine order. We can step on the garden hose and stop the flow of life. We can fight our own battles too much and get into our own worry and fear, and therefore we stop the progress. But the minute we let go and realize, then we're back. You can actually start your day over at any moment. So people
Isn't
who,
that the truth?
isn't that great? You can actually start your day over at any minute
Yeah.
and reverse the damage. There's no damage unless you cling to the past with regret or fear. You don't have to carry yesterday's burdens into today. No one should be judged on what they were yesterday anyway. We're always a work in progress, I think.
Yeah, I believe that too. And you know, that takes me back to what I was listening to with Wayne Dyer. And he's like, you know, you get multiple bodies as you're traveling through your lifetime. Like,
Yes.
I'm not in that 16-year-old body anymore, unfortunately. You know, and then you just move on into different bodies, different phases. And you know, that's just the coolest thing to me when you think about it. And when you think about this whole forgiveness topic, you know, I believe that sometimes unforgiveness can go back for generations,
Mm-hmm.
for generations. And
Oh,
you know, here's an example. Now my aunt has passed away, all right? And I finally put some things together, I believe after she died, but she was um, and I don't think that any of my cousins, if they heard this, would say anything different. She was miserly. She was mean. She was stoic. Um, she was fearful. So, and when I say she's fearful, when you're fearful, you act out in ways like example. What's that?
when you're fearful, you act out in ways that are miserly, mean, and all those other things.
Yeah. And so a lot of the family tried to stay away from her because she just wasn't pleasant to be around, right? And then my grandson Max was born. Now Max is 7 years old now, so he was born when she was elderly and she was starting to get sick and she was in and out of nursing homes and in and out of rehabs. And so I was one of the people that went to see her, and I'll tell you why. She lost a son that was 5 years old.
Oh my
And
God.
it was her firstborn. He was a little boy. His name was Petey. And this Petey would have been 65 or 66 years old now. So it was years ago. And on his 5th birthday, they noticed that his eyes were crossing and they didn't. And he was walking like pigeon-toed. And so they took him to Children's Hospital back in the day, and he had brain cancer. Now, back then, there was nothing that they could do about that. So he didn't live very long. And she became bitter over that, right? And she was unforgiving until Max was born. And then Max, and I look back on it now that she's deceased, and Max just really liked her. And my my son would say, we'd go to the nursing home or we'd go to the rehab, and I'd take my grandson Max, and he would just have the best conversations with her and sit on her bed and talk to her, and she'd hug him and they would talk, and we'd go back to I take my grandson home, and my son would be like, he called her Aunt Tomorrow because her name was Myra and he couldn't say it. So he would be like, we went to visit Aunt Tomorrow.
My
So
God.
my son was like, do you like her? And he looked at my son and he was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And that little boy, I believe, healed my aunt's heart before she passed, because I realize now that she looked at him as her son that she lost, and this little boy just adored her.
Oh,
And so she melted, like all of that hatred and meanness and unforgiveness melted with that little boy and his birth and his connection to her. And so we have no idea how we can touch people and help melt that chilled heart. It almost reminds me of how the Grinch stole Christmas, you know?
exactly. Or It's a Wonderful Life. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. I love those stories. I think that we always have to keep our eyes on what we have in common with others, the common ground, the the love. Everybody has something in them that's lovable because we're made from one source. We can't
Yes.
we can't look at each other as a different little warring bodies with little different minds. If we're under one divine umbrella, one panoply of love, clad in the panoply of love, as another great prophet says. I'm trying to figure out who said that. But I love Wayne Dyer when you're mentioning Wayne Dyer, because he's got some incredible YouTube videos on how to overcome everything in life. He's along the same thought process that we are. He wrote a book called "You'll See It Once You Believe It."
Yes.
Yeah. In other words, you don't have to. The minute you believe something, that's the faith that takes. That's the faith. You don't sit there and you pray for something and you doubt that you're going to get it. You just already thank God that you already have it. Thank God for our blessings. We already have everything we need. We just forget that. But we're in
That's
a
right.
process of forgetting right now. I'm trying to remember. Boy, that's a beautiful story. I have little tears in my eyes. Remember that
Yeah,
aunt.
and you know, here's the thing too. I found that at least I'm starting to see this, is when somebody's in that place of unforgiveness and anger and resentments, it's not helpful, in my opinion, to go and say to them, oh, this too shall pass, don't worry about it. Oh, you know what, just let it go, it's no big deal. Because when you're there, when you're in that moment, it's the biggest deal in the world. And you helped me see that, Lydia, because I remember you took a phone call from me one night when I was in absolute panic mode
Oh yeah.
over a relationship and just couldn't see beyond the text message that I had gotten. And you were just there. You just listened. You know, you weren't judgmental or condemning or any of that stuff. And I think that for me, anyway, I strive to be more like that than to try to give advice or, you know, or say, oh, God's got this, don't worry about it. Well, that doesn't feel very good when you're in the middle of
Wow.
the throes of things, right?
Right. I've done that before and it's turned people off. I just realized, why can't I get that concept? And I'm thinking, I come off sometimes like I have it all together. Like yesterday when I spoke at this meeting, and I thought, well, I seem to like have this story that everything works. And in a weird way, my life really works. But if I were to sit back and complain right now about the things that aren't working, I could make myself miserable really fast. And I've learned that the solution really is in surrender, in just saying, I don't have the power, the time, I don't have the ability to handle every problem that I'm having in my life right now. I don't have, we're not made to carry the burdens of the world on our shoulders, including what's going on in Washington, including what's going on down the street with, and the neighbors fighting. Sometimes I have so much empathy that I feel like I'm going to die of crying for people. I have almost too much compassion. I remember my ex-husband used to say, "You're too compassionate." And I went, "Can you be too compassionate?"
You know, people have said that about me too. That's funny that you're saying that. because yeah, I mean, like if I see a homeless person, I want
Yeah,
to give them food or take them to dinner or give them money,
me
and
too.
just, and I give them money and I'm like, okay, so I know you're going to go out and get a bottle of something, but can you at least get a sandwich too, because
The other night, in fact, a woman walked out. I went to Rite Aid. Rite Aid out here is like a Walgreens, and she kept calling my name. A black woman with a mask on, and I didn't turn around because I thought, oh, she's just gonna ask for money. And I kept walking, pretending I didn't hear her. And then I went, what am I doing? She's a woman in COVID, standing there looking kind of nicely dressed and in a really cool Adidas outfit, and she looked elderly. And I turned around and I said, hi, honey, what do you need? And she said, I'm 80 years old and I
oh,
just need enough to eat for tonight. And I just like, I went in there, got change for a 40, gave her 20, and then I circled the block thinking I should give her the 40. What is wrong? And then I couldn't find her. But it was like, it's no skin off my back to help someone who's has no home. And it's really cold out here. It was cold out here for a few weeks. We don't have snow like you have. I mean, we had a little bit of snow on the roof, and I was all excited. 3 blocks down, a little south from here, no snow. We were lucky we had a little bit of snow. But oh my gosh, my heart breaks for people. And then I realize if I pray for them, that's all I can do sometimes. Honestly, I do believe we have to hold each other up and know that we all have one source of supply, one
mhm,
source of love and life. And we have to see them differently. We have to stop bearing false witness, which is to constantly see the bad going on. We have to change our view.
yes,
And that heals, actually, like the neighbor incident. It heals people to do the right thing, to take the right turn. And it does help others to help each other. I think we're just one big circle of love. We're supposed to be a circle of love. That's why the earth is round. That
mhm,
sounds very, very, like a greeting card statement or something, but it is by self-forgetting that we find. The more self-centered I am, all my problems are a result of thinking about myself too much. For me,
that's
at least,
right.
you know.
That's what I said in the beginning when I was thinking about the snowfall. It's like, what about me? What about me? What about me? Who's going to shovel? And so, yeah. And God had it all planned out. I mean, He knew I needed my sidewalk shoveled because I had a very busy day at work and I wasn't going to have time to do it. So, because I'll do it if I have time to do it. But yesterday was not a day I had time to do it. So, but He took care of that.
Mystical incidents. I remember once in Colorado, I'm driving through, I went to Colorado to ski my way through college, and ended up waitressing to get in-state residency. And I finally got my tuition pretty low by being a pancake house waitress. And I worked several jobs all the time. I was a real ambitious young kid. And I remember once I was driving to a little tiny town in the Golden, Colorado, past the Coors factory, and it was a one-lane highway, and it was icy, and it was a little town called Wall Street, believe it or not. And there was an old railroad up above, and this street was so narrow, and there was a bend around the corner, and I must have been going uphill. I was going downhill, and a huge truck was honking at me and coming right at me, and I remember just blanking out and praying. And I literally got on the other side of that truck, and to this day, I don't know how it happened. You ever had a weird experience like that? Your prayer?
Wow.
I think I went under the truck. I don't know how I got around that truck. It was impossible.
Well, you know what? Now that you're saying that, I have had an experience like that. Not quite like that, but I was, of course, I was drinking and extensively. I mean, let's just say I was drunk. Let's just say that, right? And I was driving home. It was like 2 a.m. and I was 18, 19 years old. I was young. And so there's this area of street that's like a mile long going back to my house from where I was, where one side of the road is like houses and all that. And the other side of the road is literally like a 500-foot drop down into what they called the valley, where there was more houses, right?
Mhm.
And I went around the turn to go into that mile long straight stretch. And I woke up at the church on the other end of the straight stretch. And obviously I had blacked out or slept or did whatever I did on that road because my cigarette that I was smoking had burnt a hole in my console.
Oh my God.
And I snapped awake and I looked and I was like, and I think about that. And I mean, only the grace of God kept me straight versus going over a 500-foot drop. So I look at things like that and I just think somebody had that wheel besides me, just like
Totally.
what you're saying, you know?
The other day in a meeting, I heard someone say, I always thought, I was always saying, God's my co-pilot. God's my co-pilot. She goes, no, he's not. He's your partner. If he's your co-pilot, then you're taking the reins. Then you can't do that double thing where my will and his will at the same time isn't going to work as well as when he's piloting.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I've heard people say that too. They just wake up every morning and say, you're the pilot, I'm the co-pilot. Where are we going today?
Yeah.
You know, which makes it easier. But I take my will back. I say that, and within 30 seconds, I'm doing my own thing.
Actually, you're right. I do that all day long, but it's practice, not perfection. Practice makes perfect. Um, I have a forgiveness thing I want to talk about, but did you
Okay.
have something else about your relationship you want to talk about?
No, let's talk about you.
Well, it's not about me, and I don't want to name names yet, but I went through 3 years, the past 3 years, and not the past years, from 2017, 15, 16, 17, and part of 18, where I had a family member. It felt as if they were on a mission to kill me, literally to destroy me. Someone I really love and thought they were my best friend for a long time, and we were very, very close, I thought. And then a third party became involved. It was like they triangulated me. There was so much hatred directed toward me. I felt this constant being misunderstood. I couldn't make them understand that I was a good person. They just kept it felt demonic in a way, and I don't believe in demonic possession and stuff like that. I don't believe in a physical devil as much as that we create our own evil on this earth. But I have never been so hurt in my life, and I kept defending myself. I kept investigating, what is this? What are they doing? What is gaslighting? What is narcissism? And I saw these qualities in these two people, and they were like, one was lying all the time about me to this dear family member, and I couldn't make sense of it, and I couldn't pray it away, and I couldn't seem to rise above it. I was so in the middle of defending every day and being outraged every day and being persecuted feeling every day and writing long emails explaining myself every day. And I couldn't get my hands off it. And I literally, took me up until 8 or 9 months ago. And this person also has some things I need back that are family objects and items. And I just decided to go with that prayer that says, if you resent someone and you'll pray for them every day for 2 weeks, you will be free of your resentment. Well, it took a lot longer than 2 weeks for me, but I have consistently and deliberately prayed to let go of any selfish motives I have, to let go of things I want, to let go of family heirlooms, to let that go of trusts and things, and just to love them and to see what their need is. Every single day I've done that. And there's been a magnificent turnaround to the point where it's like a miracle. And nothing changed. We didn't speak about it. I never confronted her again. We never talked about it again. And it's turned around in a way that's, I feel, so beautiful. It's a beautiful example of what forgiveness can achieve in a family.
Well, that's beautiful. That is really nice. But you know what? You took the action
I did.
because you prayed for that person. And I think that sometimes I forget that prayer is the most powerful thing we can do for someone, ourselves, anyone. And you know what I find myself saying? Well, the only thing I can do is pray. The only thing I can do is pray. I've exhausted every other possibility.
Meanwhile, it's the one thing that would have worked from the beginning, probably, but it's always
Absolutely,
my last resort.
absolutely correct. But you know, it's interesting because you mentioned the word narcissist and gaslighting. And you know, psychopath falls into that
Yes.
psychiatric realm. And those are dangerous topics. You know, I mean, medically they're dangerous. And um, you know, there's a person in my life I believe that might fit into that category. And I've learned right now that the best thing to do is I myself am the person that put me here, put me there,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so now I need to pray, pray, and pray and allow God to work the situation, how it's going to end. And for me, just to be still and know He's God.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Take your hands off it.
that's correct. That's correct. Because when you're dealing in that realm, that emotional, mental realm, it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
And so what you did, I believe, is a very smart move to not antagonize, not to keep emailing, not to keep picking. You just started praying, and God.
I also moved out of that. I was living there, and I kept hearing this voice. Actually, my practitioner, I have a prayer healer I work with, and he said, "You don't need to be there anymore. You can move out. You don't need to be there. You." And I said, "No, no, I need to claim my territory here because it's part of our trust." And I realized, wait a minute, no. And such beautiful things happened to move me out of that place into a much better place in a really great relationship as well. With so
That's
much love,
awesome.
where I feel loved every day for all the little things that I used to think nobody noticed, that I know all the things I wanted to be loved for in a weird way. It's like, I don't know, we all have little gifts and so finally someone's noticing them.
And
But
that has to be a wonderful feeling,
yeah,
especially because you remind me of somebody that is like a very emotional person. That's the way I am too. Very, like, I can set, like, Oprah gives cars away, I start crying. I mean, I would watch those shows and these people would win cars and they were down on their luck and she would help them and I would bawl for them. It's just because I was so touched. It was like, I mean, I always hoped that one day I would be in a position to be able to give back like
yeah,
that,
me
you
too.
know,
Yeah.
uh, to give back at that level and really just, I mean, because I loved it. Like those little boys that I gave that money to, you would have thought I gave them $1 million the way that their eyes lit up, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't even have gloves. So it was like that to them was a fortune. And that's little. And one of these days I hope to get large and be
Yeah.
giving large stuff because we're not taking any of this stuff with us.
Never. We don't take it with us at all. Yeah, I love that. I helped a couple people that were so down and out I decided to help friends. And actually a friend of mine taught me when I had babies at home, little kids at home, she said, I'm going to volunteer to babysit for you once a week or once a month. And that was such a sweet gesture. She didn't have money, but she volunteered her time. And so I started doing that with another friend, friends of mine who were raising two kids in the foster care system, and they really are strapped, and it's hard to make ends meet. So I always volunteer before COVID to babysit for them or to buy them their groceries, now and then. And I do that for several people, whatever I can do. I don't always give to just a charity, but to friends that I know are in need, because a lot of people are in need right now.
Yes, they are. A lot of people have lost jobs. I mean, and
Yeah.
the COVID-19, this whole pandemic has changed our landscape.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we'll ever go back to what we previously knew. I think it will evolve into something beautiful and wonderful because that's how God does things.
Right.
But I still think we have some fires to walk through yet, you know, and especially with older people that were on fixed incomes. And I don't know if you're noticing this, but I keep track of like monthly gas bills and monthly water bills, and they've increased. I mean, like $20, $30 a month compared to what they were last year this time.
Oh no.
And so when you have somebody that's on a fixed social security income, that's going to be difficult. Medications have gone up and healthcare costs have gone up. I mean, everything's going up and our cost of living isn't.
Oh my.
So yeah.
Well, we have to, first of all, I think there is a blessing in this, in that we should be learning to realize that we all bleed the same color and that there is no difference. This should be a uniting experience where we're all realizing how much we need each other and how much love. I mean, this should be coming together. Instead, we seem to be going through a really hard time of finding things to fight about. but I think ultimately it's going to be good, like chaos theory. The higher up you get above chaos, a beautiful pattern is forming. You know, it
Mhm.
looks chaotic right here at this eye level, but the
I
design.
agree with that. It's still your tapestry, back to your tapestry.
Exactly.
But I think that a lot of people, um, I mean, I think that people got frightened. And I think when people get frightened, at least for me, that's the underlying emotion that causes anger, confusion, anxiety, all of it is I'm afraid of something, right? And
Always.
I think with our world the way it is today, I mean, like I think back to what happened prior to COVID. You were having like mass shootings at concerts, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Bombs going off in like Paris. I mean, strange things were happening all over the world. And I think everybody was becoming fearful. And then bam, now you got a virus that's floating. And of course, there's all kinds of theories. People have theories, the conspiracy theories, and is this, chemical warfare? Is this really a virus? What is this?
I
You know,
know.
so I just think that everybody's like kind of got disconnected
Fear
and some
is the enemy always. Fear is actually the root of, it's harder to heal a patient as Christ healed if they're in fear. And you have to alleviate the fear, take the fear away first, and then then they can accept the new principle idea that their disease isn't dis-ease, shouldn't be your birthright. It isn't something that's inherent to you. It's harder to conquer a disease when you're in fear.
absolutely.
So we have to alleviate the fear, everyone's fear. And conspiracy theories are there just to create fear. So somebody can gain a monetary advantage in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know about COVID. I just know I got the vaccine last week, the second vaccine.
Yay.
And I had that one little night of chills, and my teeth were chattering. I got into the big covers, and the chills went away immediately within about 10 minutes. And then I had a kind of a not much of a fever. My temperature was pretty level all night, but I had some night sweats, and then in the morning I was fine. It was like less than a 24-hour flu.
Awesome.
5 or 6 hours of feeling like that. And I felt good about it in a weird way because it says your immune system is actually revving up in the second phase where it recognizes the enemy, and that's why it's reacting. And there's a really good article on that I want to send you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And
And,
I'm still waiting. I'm still watching and waiting and looking at data and research, and
I know.
I'm still not, my tiered level is still not ready for, we're still, in the area where I live, we're still giving it to 80-year-olds.
Oh,
Because I'm in a very elderly population center.
okay.
And so really I'm a youngster in this town. I'm young. So anyway, so my time is not yet anyway. So I'm just kind of watching and waiting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're not doing the vaccine yet. I'm just this whole thing. I do have a side of me that wonders if there's something bizarre going on. The other side feels as if we needed this big timeout. We were going so fast in the society, almost like breakneck speed, cutthroat deals and motivational speakers. And I would get so many emails trying to sell me something, and nobody ever stopped to breathe and look around. And this is like, if there ever was, if there, God's plan may be to stop us and slow us down and make us look each other in the eyes, to sit there and be alone for a while and go, do you miss each other? Do you need each other? What are you doing? What is life about?
That's true. That's true. I heard a really great thing that said, because, like I said, before COVID hit, there was a lot of craziness going on, right? And I heard this thing that said, God became so frustrated, he sent all of us to our room.
I love that.
I thought that's kind of what happened. We just all ended up in our own little spot.
Exactly. And the El Paso shooting, when 23, a guy hated Hispanics, and he almost repeated exactly Trump's words about Hispanics. I have to say that. And he shot 23 people in my hometown in a
Oh,
Walmart. And it's like, there's so much hatred and so much tribalism. If we can't solve, we've got to solve this now. And I think I've always noticed that in the seed of something bad is always the silver lining of something good growing. You know, nothing bad never wins in the end. Dictators never win in the end. They're
No,
always defeated. Evil is always defeated.
absolutely is. And like, you know what God says, everything will be revealed, everything. And so I really take that to heart when I'm doing something, because it will be revealed. So I always just, and this is what I pray for. If I think that somebody's doing something behind my back, or somebody's not playing nice in the sandbox, I always just pray to God, and I'm just kind of like, you know what? You say all things will be revealed. When you're ready to reveal this to me, please let me see clearly. Let me see with your eyes. Let me see with your eyes.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah. So and he will show us.
One
I
more
believe.
thing before we go, I wanted to talk about, when I was thinking about how I forgave my sister, my loving little sister. And I had that big forgiveness healing. I had someone say to me, why don't you forgive yourself? Because
Hmm.
I do beat myself up every day for things I'm not achieving. I have this kind of unbridled ambition that I wish I could quell and push aside. And I wish I didn't want to be a writer so badly. And I want to change the world with my writing. And I want to write funny things. And I want to get back into acting. And I went, do I really want those things? And why do I want them? I wrote a line once when I realized how happy I was without getting all that. And the line said, if I knew I could be this happy without getting what I thought I wanted, would I have tried so hard to get it and almost killed myself in the process? Because
Mm-hmm.
my alcoholism was basically I couldn't quell the lust for fame that I was so craving at the time as a younger person. And then I got that and I realized, wow, it's hard to keep this up. It's very hollow. People only like you for what they think they see you look like. They don't know you who you really are. And to be known and seen and heard and to be a worker among workers, to be a person, it's not like you want to be above anyone. Fame keeps you isolated from others. And even in my little tiny world of the little bit of fame I've tasted, not the biggest fame, but I don't know if I really want those things I want so badly. I just want to be creative. And I've noticed that
Absolutely.
creativity is the key to delighting God. Symphony music, playing a symphony, writing a poem, painting a painting, doing what you do, helping others like we're doing right now, sharing, that's creativity. And that is where I think love blossoms or the human spirit blossoms. And that I think that pleases God the most is when people are being
I
creative, when they're not fighting or looking at the flaws, they're looking
mhm.
at what enhances life and beauty. Nature walks, looking at butterflies, painting beautiful colors.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly how whatever is developing here with Godshots, I truly, truly believe that this is the antithesis. I think that's the right word for what's going on in our world.
Me too.
You can either focus on all of the negative, or you can focus on the positive, and the positive comes from God, the universe, whatever. And so when you were talking about the fame, I think about things now, and I think, like Paul Newman, like I think, because he had those beautiful blue eyes, and I always admired him because he kept his marriage together for all those years. And the one thing I heard him say on an interview was, um, why would I go out for hamburger when I have steak at home? And it just kind of really made me think this is like a good man, right? But when you put him on the scale of thinking about, um, somebody like Wayne Dyer, who's written all these tapes and books and found this way of meditation and thinking, and shared that with so many people. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's apples and oranges, although it's the same. It's fruit, right?
Right.
So Paul Newman gave a lot to our society with his acting career and what he did, and he got very well paid to do that. And Wayne Dyer has left a lot to people too, of how to think and look at things, and live differently, live better.
Yeah.
And I believe that what we're doing here is going to show people, if we're, you know, this is how I feel about it, at least for me. If I'm having these God shots, if I'm having these moments, there's people all around this world that are having them too. And they need a platform where they can see it, look at it, watch it, and, you know, engage in it. And so I'm very excited about this.
Me too, and share it, which means we have to call there's several people lined up to share their God shots. They all work the same hours that we're doing the show right now. So I want to line them up. But I love that because yes, we need to share our joy. Share your joy, you double it. Share your pain, you cut it in half. Share your joy, you double it.
Right.
And so many people are having these at the same time, and we need to be more aware of them and propagate them. So I was thinking the other day, I was in the middle of a meeting called The Great Reality, which is that deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by circumstance, but deep down inside all of us, we know there is some beautiful rhythm to life that propels us, some spiritual aspect that makes us seek joy and delight in each other and not want to hurt each other. We're not made for death, we're made for life.
Right.
And so I love they use the term gift of desperation, G-O-D. I pray that you have the gift of desperation, or good orderly direction. For people who don't want to believe in the God of the Bible, think about God in a new way. I love to use the word God. And to me, it means love. Love is the healer. Love
Mhm.
is fellow man. That's what Christ came to teach us. Love one another. Love your neighbor. Love your enemy. Love, disarm people with love.
Right.
Imagine if those people having the snow shoveling fight had just stopped. You're right, just been still for a minute, or just gone up to hug the other. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it would have ended very differently. But I think that we have to be cautious because you know what? I think all of us, if anybody listens to this, I think all of us need to be very cautious that, you know, we don't know what kind of day somebody's having. We
Right.
don't know what phone call they just received. We don't know how many guns they have laying on their counter. And it's better off if they're doing something you don't like, do Lydia's thing, say a prayer, say a prayer and walk away.
Right. Walk away, say a
Walk
prayer,
away. Yeah.
and pray for the world. You know, just see the world as healing and coming together and see people smiling and smile at people when you see them. I used to try to give people hope that way because they're so used to these grumpy people walking
Right.
around.
And you can see it behind the masks. People's eyes change when they're smiling. So
Totally.
yeah, this has been a great show. Thank you. And
You too.
maybe next time we'll have people on with us.
Yes, in fact, we were going to have Daniel on, but he's driving right now back from Boulder, Colorado. He's the co-host I want you to meet because he's got
Awesome.
a lot of wisdom, and the Wayne Dyer as well. He sent me an entire Wayne Dyer 6-book CD-ROM.
Awesome.
Really old word, but yeah.
I have them.
CD.
I have them. I have the CDs. I have them.
CDs. Okay,
Yeah.
you're the best. Have a blessed, wonderful
you.
week. We'll talk in a couple days, and I'll send you the tape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Have a good night.
Bye, honey.
Bye.
Bye.